welcome to our latest episode of Identity Security Unleashed for the AI Era. Over the last few weeks, we have had multiple sessions where we have brought thought leaders from the industry to talk about various aspects of identity security across machines, AI agents, and humans. Today, I have the pleasure to have some of the thought leaders from the industry to talk about the full life cycle of managing non-human identities, NHIs, or machine identities. With me here today are Eric Fourier, CEO of GitGuardian, Lalit Choda, the founder of NHI Management Group, and Oder Haravan, CEO and co-founder for Akeyless Security. Welcome, gentlemen. Before we get started, let's go through a quick introduction of yourself in your own words. Let's start with you, Lalit.
Yeah, hi everyone. Lalit Choda, founder of the NHI Management Group. 30 years in the industry within the financial sector, running large global NHI, PAM, and IAM programs. My mission in life is to educate, evangelize around protecting organizations from non-human identities.
Eric?
Hello, everyone. So I'm Eric Fourier, CEO and co-founder of GitGuardian. So at GitGuardian, we protect companies against leak secrets everywhere. It could be in code, messaging system, ticketing systems, and help them maintain them, fix them. We're also the largest GitHub application in the world with 500,000 developers using us and a lot of enterprise around the world using our product.
Fantastic. Oded?
Yeah, sure. So started my time with cybersecurity around 25 years ago in the Israeli Defense Forces, specializing in identity and access management, DevOps, DevSecOps, all around information systems and infrastructure, etc. Later on as a senior project manager for CA Technologies, again in the realm of identity and access management. Then time after that as a director of product for a company named MoveIt. I was acquired by Intel, and then started Akeyless together with our co-founders. That's my background.
Awesome. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you all for being here. My name is Suresh Satyamurthy. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of Akeyless Security, and I'll be moderating this panel today and learning from some of the best minds in the industry around non-human identities. Gentlemen, just before we get started, you have been working in the industry for years. If that is the case, why do breaches continue to grow? This is data that is publicly available where 91% of organizations still report an identity-related breach. 85% are still attributed to machine identities and secrets, and it continues to grow. So Lalit, why don't we start with you? What is the problem in the industry we have all been trying to solve, but seems like breaches seems to be going up?
Yeah, look, great question. Clearly people may have heard the term secret sprawl. I guess kind of over the last 10, 15 years with cloud microservices, containerization, SaaS services, and automation, we've just seen the sort of credential secret sprawl problem just get worse and worse within the ecosystem. And now we're seeing a lot more credentials that are kind of discoverable by threat actors externally. So that's probably one of the biggest reasons now that we've got sort of hyper-fragmentation in the environment with sort of credential secrets all over the world. It's really easy picking for threat actors to discover those credentials. But look, I think, in addition to kind of those traditional issues that we've seen as kind of our environments become more and more complex, fixing issues related to non-human identities and machine identities is very, very challenging to do. I'll give you a real life example. About 5 years ago, we had an issue within one of our organizations I worked at, a big financial global powerhouse, and we scanned for credentials. We found in our initial scan 1.3 million credential leaks, obviously including false positives. So imagine starting from potentially 1 million hard-coded credentials. How do you then go about fixing those credentials, not causing operational impact? So even discovering them is one thing, then remediating them is another thing. So I guess just some initial insights on why this problem continues to grow and doesn't get better.
Eric, what's your take on the problem? Why does it continue to grow?
Yeah, so joining 100% Lalit on remediation is hard. Like at Gate Guardian, we say like detection without remediation is just noise. Remediation is probably taking in the Gate products like 80% of the value we deliver, and it's for companies. We think it's a major issue to fix like credentials that have been leaked. And as Lalit mentioned, like 10 years ago, we had 15 years ago, we had the microservice DevOps revolution. You had more and more services, more and more APIs. Developers were able to provision infrastructure, whereas like 25 years ago, like it was mainly like IT administrator responsible to centralize perimeter of different self-hosted servers. But now, like I think we're in a new area with AI, where like now anybody can vibe code a new application and provision API keys, do like services in Replit and Lovable that have access to real data. So it's just like increasing so much like the risk, making any employee a potential leaker of secrets, where like 2 or 3 years ago, we are mainly monitoring developers. So that's actually a huge issue right now. And on top of that, like the agentic and AI agent have just multiplied the number of connection we need to make between different services. Like if you take the examples right now and you look at companies right now, everybody's trying to deploy this AI agent. There is actually no security guardrails, and we're giving access, very, very privileged access to this AI agent. We're giving access to customer data. We're giving access to our internal knowledge base. Could be like Google Drive or Notion. We're giving them access to databases, sometimes production databases, and to do that, we're actually using like secrets. And unfortunately, there is no real strong protocol to give access to this data for AI agents. So we're just giving them more and more like static credential, just increasing the secret sprawl that was already a huge problem 10 years ago. And now it's becoming a problem that's 10 times bigger.
It's true. The rise of AI agents exasperates the problem. Oded, you have been in the industry, IAM and identity security space for years now. What are we doing wrong as an industry? Why does this problem continue to happen?
I think that first of all, the matter of us asking ourselves, what have we done wrong? This is something that we're not hearing enough. Given, millions and billions of dollars that have been developed and invested, by companies to the software vendors and cybersecurity vendors for a long time, with IGA, privileged access management, as well as access management, right? Everything was meant to secure the identities. We were very much focused on the human aspect for years. There has been another element, which was closed networks until around 2000, up to 2005, maybe even more. Networks were not that open. When cloud appeared 2010, 2015-ish, then things have started to even take even greater turn, where opening the networks, those on-prem networks, and this is where you see the spike of more and more passwords to be revealed. Add to that the public code repositories, and then suddenly you get the boom of secret sprawling, automation coming up, infrastructure as code. Everyone has secrets. Now the phenomena is much bigger than what we can actually consume. So first of all, the reason why there's still a problem, it's because that as an industry, we have not been able yet to implement enough with the guidelines and to educate enough with our customers of what do they need to do. And everything starts with cooperation. And the first thing that, looking from the above of how identity and access management should look like, today we're still in a position where application security have been like, let's say 10, 20 years back, where security and developers, or security and platforms production, are not necessarily working together, right? Application security actually have done it better within 5 years back, and we'll talk about it later on, but this is a great time for us to improve that to better cooperation. But what the bottom line here is that the identity teams and developers are not very much in cooperation. And this was what brings us today to where we are, which with vault sprawling, many different types of solutions to centralize the secrets. De facto, the secrets are not being rotated at all. The complexity is even rising, as Eric said. Lalit mentioned the fact that it's not being done, and Eric mentioned the fact that it's now being more complex. We're going towards an apocalypse on that end if we will not be able to educate better our customers to start talk about federation, identity provider, providing tokens, providing secret lists, and so on and so forth.
Awesome, thank you. Let's dive into some data that Eric and team have pulled together from a recent research. Eric, I did see your report on 2025 State of Secret Sprawl. What would you like to share with the audience about the report and its data?
Yeah, thank you, Suresh. So we're doing a report. So every GitGuide has been scanning like public GitHub for the last like I think 5 years now, and we extract very interesting data from this. And one stuff that like really was very scary for me was like, so what we did is in 2022 we actually checked all the secrets that had a way to check them using a HTTP call, a non-intrusive HTTP call. So we realized like that secrets that have been leaked in 2022, if we are looking today if they are still active or not, we have 70% of the secrets leaked in 2022 that are still active today. So what does that mean? It means like, and was exactly the point of Lalit, is remediation is extremely hard and leaks are not remediated. So you have still like 70% of the secrets that are still active today, which is crazy. It's just a treasure for attackers to just take a secret available on the public space, breach into your infrastructures and move laterally from there, like using other secrets, scan your internal repos, your internal Docker images, your internal systems for more secrets, and just gaining more and more privileges, and later be able to do like ransomware or even stuff like nastier than putting like sometimes malware in different component of your software supply chain.
And you did mention, you did mention earlier that AI was going to exacerbate the problem. Do you have any data to talk about what that is going to do?
Yes, we do. So we did a study that like actually repo. So developers using Copilot are 40% more likely to leak secrets, and I think it's data confirming an intuition that's pretty easy to grasp. Is like usually people using like vibe coding and using this AI agent are less careful about security, and currently like these LLMs have no guardrails in place to avoid that. So it's just amplifying the problem in a terrible way, and also you generate more code. So it's a double effect here, which is kind of scary when you think about it.
It is scary that secrets that have been leaked, that have been created in 2022 is still active. Lalit, what are your thoughts on this challenge and problem?
Yeah, look, I'm going to give you like a real life example of something that triggered like one of the biggest NHI programs in sort of the financial industry. I get a call from my CISO and head of IAM, said, look, we've had a big incident. It's gone all the way up to senior management within the bank. We think it's related to non-human identities. So what transpired was an IT person within the organization was inappropriately using a non-human identity. They knew the password. It was for a database account, and they were trying to do some updates in UAT, but they actually connected to production by mistake. So there you've got some core issues, right? A human using an NHI, bad. Lack of environment segregation between prod and non-prod, lack of cycling of the credential. And then our CIO says, look, you need to fix this within 24 hours, reset the password. We start talking to the app team. They said, look, we don't even know where all of our code is referring to this credential. And we think we may have even given the credential to other teams as well. And we don't know who's using it. So understanding all your dependencies, right? Where is that one database credential used in all your source code, is a huge challenge. So one day took us 3 weeks to find all those dependencies. We found with monitoring and logging turned on the database, another 8 applications were sharing the same credential, right? All those teams had to move to their own, dedicated credentials. And then finally, the password could be cycled, and that was many, many man weeks of effort just to deal with one credential. And then amplify that, we had to fix over 100,000 credentials. And it took us 4 to 5 years to complete, and tens of millions in remedial efforts. So I think that's one area I think AI is going to be transformational, where hopefully it can start to streamline some of those discovery, assessment, dependency, and then fixing the code automatically. So I think we're going to see some big improvements with AI to help us start to de-risk, but it's a huge, huge challenge.
Oded, have you seen any issues similar to this with the customers that you work with?
Definitely, we've had one of our customers, and obviously within Akeyless, the ability to rotate is that as a core capability next to dynamic secrets creation and just-in-time creation of identities. So for the ones we call it the second generation, but we'll go into that later on in this panel. But we've had one of our customers to say it's not enough that you would rotate the password itself, rather than we would ask you to also recycle a certain container or a certain server. So we've added this functionality as a custom capability that you can run all kinds of activities after you rotate. And this is something that we found to be very effective, where customers actually, beyond rotation, they require also recycle of those services in order to complete the recycle operation. And this is something that quite often when the industry speaks about let's rotate and let's move on and let's remediate, sometimes they lack this kind of angle. But as we see the production teams in their eyes and the way that they connect, this is how we look at it.
Got it. Now, over the last few minutes, we have been discussing the challenges and problems associated with NHI secrets, the mismanagement of it, lack of best practices, the need for vendors to do education. Now, let's switch to remediation. Clearly, from Lalit, the examples that you showed us, it appears that solving one part of the problem, like discovery, may not be sufficient, and companies need to take an approach of a full life cycle of NHI management. Could you share with us, as a part of your nonprofit, what a full life cycle of NHI management looks like?
Sure. Look, I think we always get asked the question, what's unique about managing NHIs compared to sort of human identities, whilst some of the lifecycle processes overlap around JML. I think for managing NHIs, it's much, much more complex. And we've clearly touched on some of those points already. I think the heart of it is obviously around how do you provision and manage the NHIs. Typically, credentials are created maybe by admins, maybe by automated processes, and they're, in many different disparate sources. We don't have a common source of truth for NHIs like we do for human identities, like a HR records. So you're going to find NHIs are kind of sprawling everywhere within your organization, on-prem, across all your cloud environments, your containers and your vaults, and then obviously in source code. So the first thing you've really got to get to grips with is how do you provision your NHIs? If you're still using static credentials, how do you ensure that these credentials are not shared with, developers, humans? How do they go straight into a vault at provisioning time? And then just as importantly, decommissioning those credentials when they're no longer in use. The real challenge is obviously the discovery inventory. How do you know what's out there? What's the size of the problem? You can't really start planning kind of your strategy, which will be multi-year, until you understand all those endpoints. I think with cloud and APIs based services, those things are generally fairly straightforward to discover. But when you're dealing with on-prem environments, where there's lots of endpoints, databases, Windows servers, Linux servers, and other sources, getting that full inventory is really challenging. And clearly, part of that is you need to scan your source code and apply all the context and try and join the dots. NHIs are typically obviously very highly privileged, so being able to classify them and understand, what permissions they have. Are they got admin rights, read versus write? What's the breadth of access? Do they have access to one server? Do they have access to thousands of servers? So you need to understand, what's the risk profile, because you're not going to be able to fix all these issues, quickly. It's going to be multi-year, so you need to take a risk-based approach. Then comes posture management, where you kind of, once you've understood what you've got out there, you need to do some hygiene. Have you got excessive permissions, right, when it should be read? Are your environments misconfigured? And you're going to find lots of inactive accounts or shared accounts. We've been at orgs where 60, 70% of the NHIs that are in the environment are not in use, right? They're stale, inactive, no lack of ownership. So that's one area that you can massively reduce the surface area of risk. But then comes on to remediation. You've obviously then got to deal with those static credentials that are hard coded, whether you're doing vaulting, cycling, rotation. And then the next key part of the life cycle is really monitoring, who's using these NHIs. Has someone externally, discovered your credentials and using them? But you're also going to find, shockingly, many of your IT staff using NHIs internally for BAU activities. So monitoring controls become key. But then really target state, like as Oded said, dynamic, ephemeral credentials, moving away from static credentials and having prevent controls, even stopping hard-coded credentials going into source code, and real-time protection is really kind of the nirvana state you want to get to. But look, most of your credentials today are going to be static, right? So you're going to have to manage them and get control of them whilst you work, to more strategic IM approaches.
Awesome. Lalit has a great framework for the life cycle, and he also has a training program that if audience are interested, could take it. But now that we have identified the need for the entire life cycle, why don't we ask the vendors on our call to how they can provide solutions for it? Eric, he said, Lalit mentioned that, how do I even know where my secrets and identities are? What can you offer that can help customers find the secrets?
Yeah, thank you for the mention, Suresh and Lalit. I think what's really interesting on the, just to before like talking about what GitGuardian can provide, it's really interesting to see the evolution of the category of NHI security over the years, because when GitGuardian started like 6 or 7 years ago, like we really focused on secrets in code. We started by finding secrets publicly leaked on GitHub, and then scan internal code base for secrets. And for a long time, we were attached to more code security or application security category. And people will say, oh, remediating a secret in code is exactly like fixing a vulnerability in your dependencies or fixing the SQL injection. But it's totally different. Like when you think about it, like and Lalit mentioned it really clearly, is like when you fix a CA vulnerability or a SaaS vulnerability, you just have to fix the code. But for secrets, you actually need to change the code, rotate and recycle the credential, which is an extremely difficult task. That's like split across multiple departments. Like the developers need to handle the code fixing, depending on organization. It could be IT people, platform engineers that are responsible to recycle and rotate the credential, and you need to find like all the places where all the workflow and the application where the secrets is huge. So it's a very difficult problem that requires a lot of integration and discovery. And that's what we try to provide GitGuardian. So the first step is really trying to discover where your secret have been leaked across multiple type of data sources. So we're able to scan source code, Slack messages, Docker images, um, ticketing system like Jira, basically every system that might contain secrets, which is unfortunately a number that's really growing with time. And now you have like all the AI prompt and a lot of places where you didn't imagine you could find secrets, you have them. So we have more and more sources to scan. So that's the step one. But also we integrate with different providers where it's what I call where like when a secret is leaked, what should I do as a company? How to securely store it? So we integrate with great secret manager like Akeyless and others, but also we integrate with sources where like actually the secrets are used. Things about like Kubernetes clusters, like any type of workflow that's using the secret. So the idea of it is really trying to provide to our customers the best context where like, okay, where is my risk? So where I can find the leak secrets, and also give them the ability to actually do the remediation. So how they can store safely the secrets and make sure like the workflows are correctly using the new secret that has been provisioned, and making sure that actually using and following the best practices. We will talk about it, but yeah, dynamic credential, avoid static credential, not sharing secrets between dev, staging, pre-prod, and prod, like all this kind of control that at the end of the day make our customers safer.
Got it. Oded, earlier in this series, in the keynote, you had done a couple of announcements on Akeyless and its AI Insights, as well as AI agent identity security capabilities. So I figured now would be a good time to remind the audience who may have not seen that presentation to go back and see it. But it would be great if you can use this time to answer the question with what we have learned from those.
Sure. So very quickly, and as you asked, what does the vendor around the table has to offer in terms of actually answering what the life cycle of Lali just mentioned. And Eric went specifically for the ability to detect those secrets and then to understand also their relation and so on and so forth, and to provide a better understanding of where your secrets are. With Akeyless, traditionally, we've been very focused on the remediation part, or actually managing the actual identities. So as you can see in front of you, those are the three pillars: the machine identity security, AI agent identity security, in the human identity security. Those are the ones that we are very much focused on, with the ability to store the static secrets where needed and protect them, to automate the rotation of those secrets whenever they're needed. And then after that, for the ones that are interested, and to help our customers to move on to the dynamic creation of those credentials, and eventually to help them to go to completely secretless, working without secrets at all. The identity provider itself and the federation is where we put the emphasis today, where we allow workloads to be able to approach Akeyless and to query for what is the identity I should use, and please provide me with an identity in order to access a certain resource. So we're doing that today with more than 200 billion transactions a year, and we keep growing and growing with time. Akeyless is built on top of the cryptography foundation of our own Akeyless DFC technology, distributed fragments cryptography, that allows us the ability to also take care of encryption keys in a way that basically prevents us from knowing, from having access to the encryption keys themselves. Therefore, we are providing a zero knowledge SaaS. So for us, any secret includes the credentials, the authentication, and the encryption keys behind it, because everything identity starts with cryptography. On top of that, and during 2026, we are going to expand our ability to integrate exactly to platforms such as Git Guardian, like Eric have mentioned, and to be able to also understand where exactly can we remediate better. And by that, to allow a 360 degrees of understanding of where the secrets are, and eventually to provide the full remediation.
Okay, so I have seen posts from a former Gartner analyst who said that secrets are like pieces of toxic waste and they should be eliminated altogether, and that the approach that organizations should take is more of secretless. And Oded, the secretless is a term that I credit to you. You started talking about secretless 3 years back, even before many of the industry started talking about it. So let's start with you here. What is this path to secretless that enterprises need to take?
Yeah. So in a nutshell, the ideal of going into a world where there are no secrets rather than temporary tokens so that there's nothing to steal. That's the ideal picture in which all of us would like to go to, where again, within the future, where if there is no secret, there's nothing to steal. Now, everyone knows, and of course, Lalit and Eric would be able to tell you that this is an ideal picture where eventually we will continue to have static secrets in our environments, but the ideal way is to basically to start reduce the use of those, rotate them, but eventually to get to the point we are not even using the object of a secret rather than a temporary identity or a temporary token. So this is in a nutshell what stands within this understanding. So if we will simplify it even better, when a certain workload wishes to access a certain, let's say, database, right? Then in order to do so, it requires a certain credential, like we all speak right now today. This credential must be rotated, right? But when it is not being rotated, or during the time when it's being rotated, let's say once a 30 days, then eventually the identity is still there. There is still a count on that database that is waiting to be brute forced, right? So the industry is now starting to understand that it's not enough, especially in the day where AI agents now act much faster. And that means that we need to go into a realm of what we call third generation, where the identity itself will be created for a certain transaction and then will be deleted after it is being used. And that's the concept of dynamic identities, right? Where a certain workload requires access to a certain database, then Akeyless in that example goes to that database, creates a temporary access, a temporary account, and provides it back, provides the credentials to the workload itself so that they are able to communicate. And after the transaction has been made, then this is where Akeyless is deleting this particular identity, and this is where it is not being used. And yet there is still an identity. A concept of federation, in a concept of identity provider, there's the ability to provide tokens, which means does not really need this provisioning of this account, rather than the issuance of a certain token with protocols like OIDC, OAuth, SPIF Inspire is quite similar to that. But basically, the secretless means that there's an identity provider that provides those tokens, and those tokens are expired after a certain time. This leaves with a greater hygiene, a cleaner environment in which you don't need even later to clean those identities that are not being used. So this is the notion of getting there. Again, the industry definitely understands that it takes time to get there. The technology need to be there. All the different platforms need to support different types of token creation. And at the meantime, we need basically the ability to manage and to find all of those other secrets and to migrate them to that better way of working with secretless methodologies and dynamic identities methodologies.
Awesome. Eric, your thoughts on secretless?
Yeah, I think Oded talked a lot about like the idea, and the reality is it will take a lot of time to get there. And I like to say, like at GetGuardian, we monitor like all the API keys and their popularity among the different months, and we realized like in 2024, like it was the beginning of like OpenAI becoming really popular on the most like leaked credential on public GitHub. And if you looked at even the LLM and all the LLM providers and the Gen AI vendors, they have mostly implemented like static API keys with very broad like permission. So I think like unfortunately a lot of the secret set effort is also done by the different vendors in the industry and the people providing the secrets and the services. So we also need an effort here. And also in very large organization, you have all the legacy systems using a lot of static API keys. So I strongly believe in a hybrid state for years. And for vendors like us, we have started to also provide more products about like, okay, we detect leak secrets, but we also like try to help our customers have a better hygiene on their secrets management program and then their policies, just to track, okay, like how many long-lived secrets do you have compared to dynamic credential? How many of your secrets are shared between the different environment? Are you using like secretless or not, federated identity? So I think it's just an evolution of when you think about it, of how we can improve the secret hygiene for our customers and making sure they are not breached. Today, the big things we see on the field is like we still see a lot of leak credential. It's still increasing. It will probably increase for years. I hope, like Odette, that in a couple of years or maybe in 10 years, we're getting better at secretless. But I think probably also the attackers will evolve with that and will be able to be smarter and at some point take care of like, and we have seen attacks where like even like on phishing, there were attackers were able to steal the host token, even a short-lived credential, and use it to perform calls. And I think, yeah, we'll see in the future like smarter attackers even being able to find really smart way to hack a dynamic and secretless credential. Even if I think for a long time, for the next 10 or 15 years, we'll probably have an hybrid model on both. And that's what we need to do on vendors in the industry, like secure organization having both workload and make sure at the end of the day they don't get breached.
Lalit, your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think agree with everything Oded and Eric said. Look, I think with the AI era, especially with agentic, I think that's going to force everyone's hand to move a lot faster to kind of zero trust principles, with AI agents being autonomous, dynamic, and dealing with requests from many kind of end users, talking to other agents, and humans. We have to move to kind of a real-time model for, authorization, authentication, and based on, the intent and the context of what someone's doing. And these agents are going to become more and more autonomous and just do more and more things. So the answer is, and like we still see today with people standing up MCP servers with static credentials and just giving effectively God or root-like privileges, this is a recipe for disaster. So we do need to move aggressively towards dynamic ephemeral credentials, zero trust, zero standing, and just-in-time kind of principles. But to everyone's point, look, we've been trying to solve the PAM problem for 20 years, and most people are still struggling with PAM for human access and privileged accounts, right? And obviously it's got more challenging with cloud and all the other changes we're seeing in the environment. So look, yes, this is going to be a long journey, probably 20, 30 years before we really make real inroads around dealing with static credentials. But I think with the onset of AI, it's going to hopefully be transformational to not only help deal with the risks from the attackers, but help us remediate a lot of the technical debt that we have much, much faster.
And hopefully with the folks like the three of you on the call, it's not that much of a long journey and you help condense it for enterprise customers as well. So we have had the opportunity to talk about why the breaches continues to rise, what are the underlying causes for it, what is the remediation approach that we need to take. But before we bring it home, I would like each of you to please share your advice to the audience on this call, which is IAM leaders, platform architects, DevOps engineers who are listening to this presentation. What is your advice for them? Let's start with you, Eric, and then go to Lalit and then to Oded.
So yeah, my advice to IAM leaders in CISO is really NHI and secret security deserve its own category. We need vendors able to tackle the problem. It doesn't belong to code security vendors, cloud security vendor. We need specialized solution to tackle the issues. And yeah, that's the only way we can succeed.
Awesome. Lalit?
Yeah, look, whilst I would definitely agree that you need to consider some solutions, like when I first ran an NHI program 5 years ago, no solutions existed, so we had to do everything sort of from the ground up, and now there are some great solutions out there. But my advice on top of that would be, look, you got to step back and think about the fundamentals, the 101 basics, right? Policies, standards, controls, training, education. It should be clear, right, to everyone in your organization, right, that creating hard-coded, static credentials is unacceptable. At a previous org, could even lead to termination, right? So it's going to come top down. I think next, right, you need to get your IAM, your DevSecOps, right, your app dev teams all working together, right? But this is a joint problem. This is not just an IAM problem or a DevSecOps problem. You've got to build the right architecture and tooling, through some of the vendor capabilities and other architectural changes, because developers shouldn't have to think about secrets and thinking about hard coding. This should all be automated, as part of your SDLC, your lifecycle processes, and your CI/CD processes. So getting the right architects together, across all the different teams, coming up with the appropriate working groups, right? So you can tackle this problem end to end holistically. You can't just have little point solutions here and there. You got to think about your overall strategy. To start with the fundamentals, strategy, architecture, and then think about what tooling can help you support that vision.
Fantastic advice, Lilith. Oded?
Yeah, well, I think that for IAM leaders and CISOs today, I think they can notice, and if not, then we as an industry, we will help them notice that this is now the time and age where they have a great opportunity to change things. We've never seen it like years back, for years, and looking for on different types of tools that the identity and access management industry have provided. There's nothing like what we see today with Gen AI. Okay, we've been asking for application teams to change things and to integrate all kinds of cybersecurity measurements. But with identity, it was always last in line. Identity were always last in line to speak with the platform and developers and to make the changes of the authentication schemes, of the authorization schemes. That was pretty much separate in different rooms. Right now with Gen AI, there is no more developers to say that, oh, I can't open this code, I can't change this authentication, because it's a matter of asking Gen AI to help us to code it better, right? Now, eventually working with the architects, working with the engineers to leverage what Gen AI is helping us in order to make those changes within what we're about to see within the next 2, 3, 4, 5, and 10 years, which is a massive refactoring of the entire application within a certain organization. And this is a great opportunity for the identity leaders to make those changes. So first of all, advocate for the future, establish the identity provider within your organization, and obviously advocate for secretless within using the new way to code. But that's for the future. In terms of the present time, start managing what you know today, which is the vaults that are existing today, the open source vaults that are being used, the cloud vaults that are being used, and many other different pockets within the CI/CD processes, within infrastructure as code. There are a lot of places that are being known. You can plug in and start managing those secrets as is. And the third piece, obviously, is start understanding what you don't know using discovery, using detection tools, using the ability to understand better where are the gaps that you cannot see today.
Thank you. Oded, Lalit, Eric, thank you all for being here today. Thank you for this fantastic session and sharing your thoughts on this. Thank you all for being here today, and please visit the episode series website to register and watch the rest of the series as well. Thank you again. Talk to you all soon.
Thank you, Suresh.
Thank you, Suresh.